Hello friends, I am excited for today's video because we are going to sit down together and have a little paint session just for the fun of it. I have to admit I haven't done this in a good minute. I have been painting and I have been creating a lot more art. As you know, that's like a big goal for me this year. But a lot of it these days have been for Sunday Paper House. And while it is so much fun and it's really gratifying and super fulfilling to be doing art for my upcoming launch of a business, it is attached to a business. It is attached to a deadline, a project, a work-like kind of goal. And I just want to sit and paint just for the fun of it with no strings attached, just a little bit of artsy playtime, which if you've read The Artist's Way, you know that is very, very important, and serious play is something that is necessary for an artist to just fuel their creativity in the long run. So we are going to do a little bit of that, and I'm really excited for it. I have my phone pulled up to Pinterest because I do like to have a reference photo up while I'm painting, and you can probably guess the topic of the painting I'm going to do because I have been painting a lot of fruits and veggies these days, but I do have fruits and veggies pulled up here on Pinterest. And I also like to use Cosmos for reference photos as well. I just have Pinterest pulled up today, but as you can see, I am looking into blueberries today, and I want to paint some blueberries. You may or may not know, my medium of choice is watercolor, so I like to look for a reference photo that's on the more simpler side so that I can, create something a little bit simpler. I don't get too hyper realistic with my paintings, and that's just my personal preference. So let's see what I can find here. I do really like the ones that have leaves and vines attached to it, so I definitely want to do that. I also kind of like these super abstract ones. I love to see these, they're so cute. But I think I'm gonna go with something like this. Again, simple, but it has the nice leaves and vines attached to it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with this one. So I am gonna keep this pulled up as I paint, and we are gonna paint together. Okay, friends, I figured I would do a little chit chat with you as we paint this piece together, just so that it's a little less boring while we paint and you're not just listening to music. You can actually hear a little bit about the piece and my process as I go through it, and maybe I can share a couple of life updates at the same time. So let's start with the painting itself. What I like to do is start off with a sketch, and I very, very lightly as possible sketch out what I am getting ready to draw. I cannot just paint without having a little tiny sketch down first. It's just way more helpful for me because when I start to paint, I paint in like sections in my mind and also on the paper. So having the sketch there to be kind of like borders helps me section off successfully, and I think a lot of people do it that way, so I don't think that's an uncommon thing to do. But I really emphasize trying to go as light as possible because I'm really heavy-handed with my hand, and you can see that this sketch was not light-handed at all, but I did my best. I just have a habit of really pressing hard down on the page, not just with my pencil, but also with the paints as well, which is funny because watercolor is very delicate. But anyway, I then start on the fruit. I like to start with the fruit first and then work my way towards the leaves. I don't know why. I just like to get into the main subject first and then do all of the extras after. And you can see that I use my palette to do all of the mixing. I never go straight in with just one solid color out of the palette. I like to mix in just a little bit because especially with the subjects that I like to paint, they are very nature focused, and we all know that if we look at just about anything when it comes to nature and we try to solidify a color, it's so much more nuanced than just a red or a green or a blue. It's like a blue with a little bit of purple and brown, or maybe it's a green with a little bit of yellow and cream, or any of that kind of mixture. You will probably start to notice that, like if you go outside right now and start to I don't know, focus in on one piece of nature, maybe it's a tree, a leaf, a flower, the clouds even, you'll start to notice that nothing is ever one solid color, even though sometimes we associate certain things with one solid color, such as blueberries. We look at it and we think blue, but it's not just blue. So I do some mixing, like I said, and then I start very, very light and watery on the piece, because with watercolor, you're building more and more color and development and depth and shadowing as you layer. And so I like to start light as possible, because you can't go wrong if you start as light as possible, and you can always build from there. However, if you start too dark, you can't go backwards, if that makes sense. So that is my little process with the blueberries, and you can see that there are some sections that are white. I'm not painting anything there at all, because I want to kind of showcase highlights. That shows a bit of dynamism. Is that a word? It just makes the piece look more dynamic and more real life, even though it is a more abstract piece. As you can see what's happening here, I'm not going hyper realistic, but you still want to have a bit of realism when it comes to shading and shadowing, just so that it looks interesting, it doesn't look flat, and it really comes out of the page a bit more. And you can do that with even the most simplest of pieces. But yeah, that is how I do the blueberries, and then I get darker and darker, as you will see me do. And I think my favorite thing to do with the darkest pieces is add in the detailing there. Sometimes I see other painters like add details in with really, really heavy, shadowy black and brown colors, but I just like to, because it's watercolor, I like to use the most vibrant version possible of the base color and then use that as detailing. Sometimes I do the black and brown thing too, but I try to do it this way because I don't know, I just like to keep it monochrome, if that makes sense. And then the leaves, I'm pretty basic when it comes to the leaves. I don't know what happens in my brain, like when I go from one area to the next area in my piece, I will completely change the way that I approach it for some reason. And so you'll see me here with the leaves not leave blank spaces for highlights or anything like that. To be fair, I don't know how much highlights I like to put for leaves. I kind of try to keep it overall green or whatever shade of the leaf is. And then I build from there, and I'm a lot more abstract when it comes to the leaves. I get a little more fluid. I start making random strokes and playing around with the colors a little bit more. I get a little less strict, and I think it's really clear. Like once you see the end piece, you'll see that both of them look pretty different in terms of approach, and I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I hate that. I'm still kind of torn into the reason why I even do that, but it is what it is, and that's how I end up doing the leaves here. I also throw in a little bit of brown. I tend to do that a lot with leaves. I add in brown because chances are anytime you look at a leaf, there is at least a tiny touch of brown. Like if you go outside and you actually look at a leaf, I mean. So I like to add that in, sometimes a little bit more than I need to, but I still like to add it in, and I do think it makes it a little bit more interesting. But yeah, that's kind of the process behind this piece, and I don't think I have anything else to elaborate on. I just wanted to paint some blueberries. Somebody had mentioned to me blueberries, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna paint that. So that's the whole reason why I sat down and decided it's gonna be blueberries today. But you all know that I am really big on nature and plants and fruits and veggies and animals and stuff like that. So those are usually my main subject when it comes to painting. And for this past year, it has almost exclusively been like fruits and veggies when I open up my sketchbook. So I don't know, I've just been having really a lot of fun doing that, and I feel comfortable in that space and confident in that space, and yeah, I just want to live in that space whenever I am able to. Not that I don't want to challenge myself some more. I do tend to challenge myself a little bit more when it comes to my sketchbook, because I feel more comfortable making mistakes there, especially with something that is new to me. But yeah, that's just kind of a little look into how I approach certain subjects, certain complexities, challenges as an artist. And I actually don't know if I have any big life updates to share with you. You all probably know that I have been working a 9 to 5 while also creating content and also launching a business, Sunday Paper House, which is a luxury paper goods brand that I am hoping to launch in the summertime. And so that's all my life has gone to lately. It is one of those 3 buckets, and it is extremely time consuming, as you can imagine. So that has been taking up a lot of my life, but I try to disassociate from those buckets as much as I can on the weekend so that I can actually live life and not feel like it's always associated with a deadline or a project. And things have been going pretty well. I think the balance is a lot better than how it was just a couple of weeks ago. So love that for me. And I'm just hoping that the balance will get better and better. I have very slowly started incorporating body movement, aka walking, and reading for fun, and playing games for fun as part of my weekly routine, which I completely eliminated for a good chunk of time over the past month or so. So I have really been happy about that and so grateful for that, and glad that I'm getting back into my slow living practices that I really lean and rely on and find so much joy in. And I hope this is a good reminder that you should do the same if you've been lacking that these days. Okay, friends, that was a really nice painting session. It was so cozy. I didn't even put anything on in the background, like no YouTube videos or podcasts or anything, which sometimes I do that, but I didn't here, and I really enjoyed the peace and quiet and the slowness that kind of instills the moment that you start doing something like this. I really do feel like painting is a great way to practice soul living, and I like how the painting came out. It is quite simplistic, but I really love that. And to be honest with you, part of that is because it's hard for me to film and paint at the same time, because when I'm filming, I don't want to get my head in the shot. But if I was not to film, I would be like this close to the book, just because I'm blind and it's a habit of mine that I've always had since I was a kid. But yeah, that's partially why this came out super simplistic, but I really love how it looks, especially the blueberries. I love that vibrant purpley blue. So cute. But yeah, that was my little paint session. I hope it was fun and cozy for you to come along, and I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about the process as I went through that painting. But yeah, again, another fantastic example of a slow living practice. Of course, this is extremely applicable to me as an artist, but you can always pick up a pencil and a notebook or watercolor paints, even if you aren't necessarily an artist, and just have at it and have fun, because the whole point of this is to have fun. It's not to be perfect. It's just to implement a way for you to have fun, enjoy a process, enjoy something that you've always wanted to do, and make time for that, and slow things down, slow the literal pace down in the process. So again, hope you enjoyed this video. I think it's a new kind of video for the channel. Let me know if you would like more videos like this on the channel, but I will talk to you in the next video.